podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, welcome to Drinking with Authors. Okay, I'm your host, Erica Lance. With me today is
J.M. Paquette.
And our guest today is author John Dover. Woo!
Hi, thank you very much.
I want to live studio audience when COVID is over so that I can have them just woo at parts. I want to gesture and they woo.
That's right.
We'll hold up cards.
Get the applause sign going.
Yeah, exactly. And then glare at them when they don't do it because it's only a recording. Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking because we do if people want to drink along. So I have discovered that Perrier makes a Perrier strawberry. And I put gin in it.
Oh,
gin
very
and Perrier
nice.
strawberry. It's very like refreshing. Okay, Jen, we're gonna get to you in a moment. So shut
I didn't
your
say
mouth.
anything.
You don't have to. Even though people are listening to us, I can see your face. So what terribly boring beverage do you have?
I'm drinking a blackberry bubbly because water is too boring.
And why are you drinking a bubbly instead of something fabulous?
Because I'm allergic to alcohol and I can't drink it, so I get to drink the boring stuff.
See, that just sucks.
Yeah.
I am so sorry.
She's also allergic to sunlight, by the way, so she is technically a vampire by definition.
I'm in the wrong state, clearly.
You are in the wrong state, yes. You need to come up to the Pacific Northwest. We have way more clouds.
I need
she's
to move to
planning on
Forks.
moving up to, what is, Forks?
Forks. Just wear sweatshirts all the time. I don't glow. I just break out in hives and almost die. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, no.
You'll be good. Okay, John, what are you drinking?
So I have one of my favorite blended scotches today. It's Oak Cross from Compass Box, a really lovely scotch that I discovered a few years ago. Nice and buttery, a little bit of citrus to it, not too hot, just a really beautiful balance.
Wow. You have to, it's interesting. You're a scotch drinker, obviously. Talking to scotch drinkers, because that's almost like cigar smoker. Like that's a whole thing. If you're a scotch drinker, you're a scotch drinker. Otherwise, you're like, gross. That's so gross.
And which I always take umbrage to. I'm always fascinated by people that will, sit there with a Jack Daniels or Maker's Mark, but scoff at scotch, because without scotch, there would be no American whiskey. It's just a different type of whiskey is all.
That's true, but I have that same look when I watch anybody drink a Bud or a Coors, and I go, ew, like, how does that taste good to you? That can't possibly taste good, but...
You know what? I got to tell you, on like a ridiculously hot day after a bunch of physical labor, there is almost nothing better than a cheap, cold, bad beer.
I'm going to have to take your word for it, because I will at least like Blue Moon that or Shock Top something.
Sure.
I guess I can Corona it, even though that's not something you're supposed to talk about right now.
Yeah, no, that poor beer company, they had no chance.
Oh, no, not at all. Okay, so why don't you tell our listening audience a little bit about what you write?
Yeah, I actually write quite a lot of different things, but one of my main focuses, especially to talk about today, since we're drinking, might as well talk about Johnny Scotch a bit. He is one of my creations that kind of started my writing career. In that he really kind of embodies everything I love about pulp culture. Hard-boiled detectives, old like 80s action movies, like everything that I basically grew up with. I tried to just condense into this really fast-paced, quick reads of novellas that I just find nothing but joy when I write them.
Oh, that is awesome. When did you start writing?
My first forays, because honestly, I've been a professional musician most of my life. So writing hadn't been much except for just like recreational writing or promotional writing I had to do for music, until about, I think it was about 6 years ago, when I was on the road with a little party band for a while, and I had just started getting into drinking scotch, actually. And I was at this really, I was having a hard day at a festival. I mean, it was just not a good day. Things weren't clicking right, whatever, all that stuff. And we were sequestered at this terrible hotel, and there was nothing good to drink to find at all. It was bottom shelf everything. And I really wanted something nice, and I was bitching and moaning to my bandmates all day, and they finally just for whatever reason that inspired them, they just started calling me Johnny Scotch. So then, which really shouldn't have meant anything. It was it's a fun little moniker. It was a great little stage name. We stuck with it when I was on stage. They would call me Johnny Scotch, but something just started itching at the back of my brain, and it was like, what would someone that actually was called Johnny Scotch, what would that person be like? Because I am nothing like my character, with one exception. My character in the books is a musician as well, so that is the one thing I feel I share with him. But he's a very broken person, and as this was like starting to develop in my head, I was like, one night I just couldn't sleep as this character was rumbling around in the back of my head, and I went out, I left the bedroom, and I opened my computer, and within an hour and a half I had just dropped out about 2,000 words of the first inkling of what Johnny Scotch could be.
Wow.
And in all honesty, I didn't even share anything of what I was writing, even with my wife, who is one of my best supporters and strongest critics. I didn't share anything with her probably for a good 3-4 months of just like working and tightening and playing around with it. And finally I was like, hey, I got this thing, a little project I'm playing with. Would you mind taking a look at it? And she liked it and said I should push forward and try and do something with it. So from there, it spawned my first short story. I got ideas for how to kind of use my music as a launching pad for Johnny by creating kind of a soundtrack around it and having these stories that like I could bring a story out on stage and have music going and all this. And from there, it grew into, I have 2 novellas. I have a 4-part comic book series of Johnny. And then now I'm actually getting ready to release my 3rd Johnny Scotch novella at the end of August, early September.
Very cool. So I see, obviously in your name here for us, and then behind you have trumpets. Is that what you play?
It is, yeah. I've been a trumpet player my whole life, pretty much.
How did that start? I played trumpet in elementary school band.
Yeah.
I am not an expert by any stretch, and my mom was like, nope, this has to stop.
So do you walk around and just like buzz your lips occasionally? Because my husband does that. He'll just walk and be like just while he's like washing dishes. Is that a musician thing? What's going on?
Yeah, it's kind of like a muscle memory thing. We all have our little quirks. I'll sit there. Like one of the things I used to do when I was younger, I'd like walk through the halls at school just going, working on my multiple tonguing and different aspects of breathing while I was walking, which of course did nothing to help me with my popularity in high school. I was just the weirdo making weird sounds. But no, the trumpet started, it was kind of a family thing. My dad played trumpet all through his young life and got a degree as a music educator on trumpet. My mom was a vocalist, kind of an opera singer when she was younger. And when my sister was going through school, she's my older sister, she picked up trumpet. I wanted to be a little different. So I tried for one summer when I was still in grade school. I tried flute for a summer, and yeah, talk about something that just did not click with me. It just didn't work. So in the fall, when band class kicked in, when in fifth grade, I gave in, and I said, fine, I'll play the trumpet. I have one at home already. Fine.
So much peer pressure in the band universe.
So much peer pressure. And then when it came down to it, I started to actually enjoy it. I started to see some young successes in junior high and high school. It was something I could focus my attention on. It was something I could focus my creativity on. And it just kept going. Went to school at University of North Texas, down in Denton, Texas, in the early 90s, which is a big jazz school. And then I've just been performing as a professional since then. And these days I'm a teacher, a private teacher. I'm an artist and clinician for Bach trumpets. So I go out and do guest artist stuff for high schools, and of course these days all my teaching is online. Anything I do is online, but which has been an interesting shift, but it's still the major part of my life.
So when you were younger, at any point, obviously, you just, you told the story of when this came. Did you ever write before?
I wrote when I was asked to write. It was anything from English class, which was always funny that I didn't do it on my own, because even back then in like 8th grade, 9th grade, I'd write something and the teacher would submit it to the newspaper and get something, out there, but I never really saw writing as much more than just an outlet, until I got older. Any other writing I did was, when I was still working for actual jobs, I would do a lot of writing, but it was always, memos, it was letters, it was, conversational stuff or web content. But very rarely would I actually write something that I felt anyone would want to actually read.
So when you started down this and you're like, I actually have something, are you self-published or?
I am both. So
okay.
Johnny Scotch and all of Johnny Scotch stuff has pretty much stayed under my own belt as self-publishing.
Okay.
From my comic books to my novellas and my short stories. When it comes to my other writing, which is primarily horror-based, those are all published through other companies. So mostly anthologies, and then I have a publisher publishing my first full horror novel next year. So.
And what is the horror novel about?
My best synopsis that I'm allowed to give right now is it is a spaghetti western vampire adventure.
Yes.
So, yeah. Again, tapping into all the things I love and grew up with, which is, the over the top, goofy action, and then mixing of genres.
So, when did you start writing your horror then?
When did I start writing my horror? It was,
because you have a lot of horror out.
I have a decent amount. I mean, it could definitely be more. I'm not the most prolific person in the world, but I always tried to get 1 to 2 short stories out a year, is what I was trying over the past few years. I think it took about 2, maybe 3 years into my writing journey to decide to start branching out a bit and get some different ideas. But since then, I've been lucky. I mean, honestly, I've been very lucky with the work that I've managed to get out.
So how did you get into the comic book side of things?
That was part of the grand scheme in my brain when I created Johnny Scotch and decided it was a thing I wanted to do. I wanted to build basically a multimedia platform that would be inclusive of my music, my writing, and then something to present to an audience on a visual format as well to kind of take them along the journey. Mm-hmm. So after writing a few things down for Johnny Scotch, starting a novella, I had a short story ready to go. I really got the bug that I wanted to have that visual medium done within a year or so. So I reached out to some people that I knew and said, hey, do you know any artists? Because I always have dug comic books. I've always dug graphic novels. I think they're a really fascinatingly beautiful way to present stories in a different format. And again, I thought it would be really cool to be able to do these shows where there was music and spoken word and then, visuals flashed across a screen. So utilizing the comic book format, I thought gave me a good storytelling platform. That's when I connected with Dan Schaefer, who is an artist here in Portland. He's done comic books forever. I mean, since the 80s, he's done comic book work for, DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, a lot of independents. His primary source of work these days is as a storyboard artist, which I thought really added a really cool kind of momentum to the pages. He knows how to draw action. I reached out to him actually to see if he knew anybody that would be interested in doing this very, very modest, low-rent project. And he wrote me back quickly and said, I want to do this project. Because he liked what I was doing, and it connected with him as well. So that was when we started the Johnny Scotch stuff. I think probably about the first comic, I think, if I'm remembering right, came out 5 years ago.
Have you done audiobook stuff?
I have not. I've been such a chicken. I want to do audiobooks. I'm more just trying to, and I'm only a chicken because honestly, I want to narrate them, but that also means forcing myself to put the time forward to really go through the books again, really make sure they're clean and tight again, so that there's always things that get missed in the self-publishing, even with my editors who are really strong and keep me on task. And I just have not taken the time to put it on audio format yet. I'm going to stress yet.
Have you listened to the new Sandman audio?
I'm sure it's amazing because Neil is just ridiculous.
It's a great combo because there's acting and then there's the narrative voice in the background, and you with your combination of like music and visual, like, I don't know, it just made me think of Sandman. Yeah.
The closest I've gotten is I did develop with a composer friend of mine about 5 years ago when the first novella came out. We developed a program which is an hour-long. It's the hour-long live show I always kind of thought I wanted to do, which was it's live music with spoken word vignettes, so little excerpts out of the book that the music goes along with. And it's an hour-long program that we just call the Johnny Scotch vignettes. And each song is very characteristic of the reading, and it just is a really fun way to present the whole world.
Have you had a chance to read your stuff live?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done my stuff live quite a few times with the vignettes. My goal has always been that whenever I release a new Johnny Scotch book, I do a vignettes show or try to do a couple things. I've even done a few. When I go and do guest artist stuff, I'll sometimes sneak in a Johnny Scotch song. I have to be a little careful because those are usually high schools, and my stuff it's not like grotesquely nasty or anything, but it's not always family friendly-ish. So I always have to do a little bit of editing whenever I do that.
No, that makes sense. Oh, so you start writing. You were a musician.
Mm-hmm.
When you started publishing these, was there a point you went, "Hey, I'm a published author. Like this is happening."
Mm-hmm. I don't honestly, for me, I don't feel that really clicked over until at least my third published short story. Until someone else was actively putting my stuff out. I just always felt it was a great outlet. It was a nice little accentuation. It was a great way to create, swag and merchandise for my live music shows. But really until that third publication from someone else, not me, that's when I felt, okay, I can honestly say I'm a published author. I have pride in my work, and please recognize me as such.
So let's talk a little bit about the horror genre. I'm talking about it because that's my genre I write in, is horror suspense, right?
Yeah.
I write under a different name under other things, but this one, what made you decide to go that route?
Again, it came down to the visuals that were in my brain that were sparked by the stories. I grew up with, sneaking downstairs to watch Tales from the Crypt, and surreptitiously watching different horror movies when my parents were out of town, and it was always something that just kind of worked in my brain. And when I'm writing my prose, I found that a lot of the stuff, even in Johnny Scotch, a lot of my stuff can be very visceral. So I just kind of allowed that side to drive the bus for a while still inputting a little bit of my humor, and really trying to ground some of those stories with something a little more, real, so that when the horrific things happen, they would be, really, really in your face and get you going.
Do your stories have happy endings?
No.
I'm high-fiving you from a distance because none of my stories have a happy ending. Not a single one of them.
No, I won't say none of them do, but I for whatever reason, I enjoy writing when the horrific thing wins. Yeah, because we're in a world where sometimes the bad wins. It's tying it up in a happy bow is not always an option. So if it's a fun ending and it makes sense, I'm going to let it be kind of disastrous.
Yeah, no, I 1,000% agree. Ironically, when I actually started writing, again, I'd written when I was younger, but due to a catastrophe with a computer frying the stories, which probably weren't really good, but at the time it was devastating to me. I was writing the first short story I actually published, and I was working with Jen, believe it or not, and I kept trying to wedge this thing into a happy ending. It is not a pleasant story. It is, and I don't know why in my mind I was like, okay, I can't. And then I remember we were driving one time and talking about it because it was a short story and I was stuck. And it's the only time I feel like I've really experienced the equivalent of writer's block. Mm-hmm. I'd sit down and look at this and I couldn't get the story to move towards this happy ending. And I remember Jen saying to me, maybe it doesn't end well. Mm-hmm. And, I was like, what? This is like a revelation.
Is that allowed?
Is that a thing? Can I actually end this badly? It was really funny because I was like, what? Yeah. And I went, just muted myself. I went home and I was able to, this is okay. I do a podcast drunk. There's nothing like getting technology involved in that crap.
Absolutely.
But I went home and I was able to bam, 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 and the story went out. And I was like, it was a profound moment. And I just went, the way I write these stories and the way I think about it, the arcs the characters go through, even if they resolve the bad thing situation, they are totally fucked up and broken. Yeah. By the time we get to the end of this story. They don't come out of this going, everything's fine, I'm fine, everything's great.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I love about creating some of these characters. We do get used to this kind of corporatized Disney World, everything has to be flowery at the end mentality. And even in my Johnny Scotch books, like you said, there is a resolution at the end. but it doesn't mean everyone's happy. I mean, he's always going to be a functional drunk with violent tendencies. Let's be honest. I mean, that's who the character is, and that guy's only going to be so pleased with his own world. So, it always depends. I think the happiest ending I wrote was in a book for KJKPublishing out of the UK. The anthology is called Carnival of Horrors. And my story in there, the only reason I call it a happy ending is because the bad guys all lose. But I don't envision that when the curtain is drawn and the theater goes black, I don't envision that everyone that was involved in the situation in that story is actually happy after the fact. I mean, horrendous shit happened.
Exactly. No, and I think that's important. It's interesting because when I've done live readings, actually, I got this review it was a 5-star review, but the title of the review is Erica Lance is an author who likes to punch you in the fucking face. And obviously they abbreviated. And I read the review and he's like, this is a great story, all this stuff, hate the ending. Like, he was so mad that this didn't end. And so in doing the live readings of my stories and stuff, you get to the end and you say something like, and he felt her teeth sink in and rip his throat out.
Mm-hmm.
And you just stop. And I've noticed that if you do that with stories, the people in the audience are all going,
wait, what?
Just like, where's that ending part of the they all just pause like,
yeah.
Okay, is there another page? Is there a page where they're saved by the superhero?
I like my heroes to walk away.
Yeah, Jen's a happy ending. For the irony of her telling me that, Jen is a happy ending person.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I read the end of books to make sure the characters are still alive.
I keep most of my characters alive. Well, except in my horror stuff. My horror stuff, there's no holds barred. Johnny Scotch, I don't mind if he puts a few people in the hospital, but it's pretty rare that he actually, straight up kills someone.
Well, and so you said your wife's your biggest fan. Let's talk about reviews and stuff. Do you read your reviews?
Oh yeah, I read them. With the Johnny Scotch stuff, I mean, as with any author who's on Amazon, I wish there were more reviews. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, that's just how we are as writers. We want more people to see it. We want more people to comment. I think the harshest stuff I've ever seen is on a few of the anthologies I've been in, but it's pretty rare that I get called out specifically with a negative mark. I think there was one where I think someone mentioned that my stuff was fine, other things shined a little more. I'm like, okay, that's great. I know how to punch it up next time. I'm not one. When I first started writing, I was definitely super thin-skinned. I think we all are. It's like the thought of being edited was like a nightmare. And then after going through it a few times, I really started to realize, I started applying my ideas that I have with my music, which is, if I can make it better, I want to make it better. So what do I need to make it better? And so that's kind of how I approach it anymore. It's like, great, I can be offended for 2 seconds, but eventually I have to just suck it up and do what's going to make it better.
No, I think that's true. Jen's going to try. We're going to talk about editing after the break because we don't have time before the break, Jen. So just rein that in for a second. I do want to say what's interesting. I know, trust me, right after the break, you can go full. Jen has a PhD in English literature. So she's about to unleash in a very nice, kind, gentle way, because that's the way she is. But one of the things I think is interesting about reviews is, did they tell you something you can actually improve upon, or they were like, this wasn't for them? This, it's interesting because you have to go, this wasn't their book. So even if they said stuff, you go, you're not my audience. You're not who I'm writing for.
and that's the other thing with a lot of reviews. And I again, that's exactly right. The reviews where I've seen, the negative side, it's generally not something where I have much to go off of. And even the positive stuff, I wish someone would. I guess I save my improvements for my critiquers, my actual critiques, my beta readers, the people that are getting the stuff before it's ready to be seen. And that's where I put more of my credence, because they're the ones that are going to be a little more honest. They're the ones that are not there just to sell books for me. They're the ones that are there to make sure that the book I put out is something worth seeing.
Totally. No, I agree 100%, because otherwise it's not useful. But we need to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Awesome.
This is the voice of Drinking with Authors. You are at our commercial break, and our commercial is, hey, do you want to be a guest on our show? Or do you have a question for one of the guests on our show? Or do you have a brilliant drink recipe that we've never heard of? That would have to stump us. But you could reach us at drinkingwithauthors@gmail.com, or on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can direct message or even just leave a comment on one of our posts. We would absolutely love to hear from you.
Okay, and we're back. And as promised, Jen unleashed the editing kraken. Go ahead.
I wasn't going to say anything terrible. I understand that when you first write a book and then you have that first edit come back, it's like somebody insulted your baby. They were just like, oh God, look at all the things wrong with this. And you're like, no, my baby. But then as you write more and more, you're like, no, I want my baby to look good. So help me.
That's right.
It's just getting through that. I do a lot of editing, and that first conversation is sometimes difficult to be like, yeah, I know that's how you want to say it, but that's really not how your readers are gonna get it, and maybe just move some of these words around, like, please.
Jen is super nice when she does editing. I'm to the point as an author, I don't give a flying crap if I trust my editor. I actually don't want to hear about it anymore. Just take it, edit it, give me the clean copy back. You are
the easiest person. She's just like, yeah, it's fine. Whatever you did is fine. Like, oh.
Because I realized that if you find somebody you trust as an editor, I'm not an editor. I'm not a PhD in English literature. Like, I don't know when my grammar is screwed up or my pacing is off, and they're not story editing. Story editing, obviously, talk to me about the story if you think I've gone left or I need to add something. Like, don't write the story for me. But if you're just doing line edits, I don't care. Take it, line edit it, I'm done. Like, let's just whatever, because I realized I did this with my first book, and it took 8 years for my first book to get out, because I did this and I kept going back over it and going back over it and going back over it. And I had to step back and go, what am I doing? Like, I'm wasting time. I could be writing the next book or everything. Like, I wasted years going back over it, looking at it, discussing it, all that sort of stuff. And it's not profound. I didn't win a Pulitzer for my 8 years investment in my home on Whore Island, which is the name of the book. Like, I didn't, like, it's so silly.
Yeah, it is silly. But at the same time, as authors, we do believe that this is going to put me on the map. And you know what we need to believe is, well, this will be read. I just want it read. Let's start there. And then if it's read by the right people, great. And then they'll help put it on the map. But honestly, it's like with music. You have to write it. You have to record it. You have to put it out there. Then you do something else. And you just have to keep going, keep putting something out, so that you are always entertaining your audience. You're always giving them content. And it's this continual stream. There is no destination when it comes to the creative process. There's just the next project.
It's never done. It's just
Look at that profoundness on Scotch that you had going there. You have profound Scotchness. It's true though, and I think some writers get stuck in their own head. And also, here's the thing, no matter what, you're going to keep improving. You're not going to keep improving that same manuscript. You're going to improve the next manuscript and the next manuscript and the next manuscript. Like, I've talked to a lot of authors and they talk about, and I agree with this 100%. Like we've talked about reading publicly a little bit, but I now do not go back to read my previous stuff unless I'm writing a sequel to whatever the previous stuff was. Sure. Like if I need to just refresh and make sure, because I know everybody out there believes we've memorized our entire story and know every fun fact. I know that the world does think that, though. You know, do you remember when in the book? No, I do not remember when in the book that happened. Thank you, though. I do. It's one of my favorites too. I've got the answer down, Pat, but I just.
You know what? I will.
Go ahead.
I want to add that I met R.A. Salvatore once, and he actually, he's that guy. He remembers on page 72 what character it was, because I had just finished reading it, and he's asking me very specific questions, like, what did you think about? And I was like, oh my God, he knows this, like nerd knows this. And then I was like, oh, well, in my own work, I don't remember what I did to that character. Damn. And R.A. Salvatore has 50 books, and he remembers them, or at least maybe that one was on his brain, but yeah. So I don't know, maybe there are authors out there that do remember every character. We're just not them.
Well, no, there are fans that remember every character. I'm sure there are fans of Johnny Scotch that remember everything, and they come up and they're like, hey, I want to talk about, and you're like, cool,
let's do this. Awesome.
What do you think happened?
Yeah, exactly. I do have those, because especially there's actually what was really funny about the comic book series when I was doing that with Dan was I wrote the first comic book it was supposed to just be like a one-off, one issue. Here it is, kind of a throwaway story. Johnny was supposed to be the main focus, and he's supposed to come in and save the girl, blah blah blah. Very stereotypical genre-esque stuff. And I never really put any actual thought or process into who the female character was. And that was a mistake. I admit that now. Because Dan came back to me and he said, I will keep doing comic books for you, but you have to keep that female character going. I'm like, oh, shit. So all of a sudden, which was great as a writer, because it challenged me to actually think about who and what I was writing. It was my first writer's challenge of, well, how can I make this very two-dimensional character 4, 5, or 6 dimensions deep? And what was great was I ended up creating a really fun, fantastic character who, really fueled that entire comic book run and really brought up the level of the novella that I eventually came up with that was the basis of the comic book. So I love that stuff.
I think it's interesting you say that, because I've watched authors do this in series, and I've watched them do it, is if you're writing a story, I feel you are almost required to write ahead in your mind with where that's going to go. Because if you sit down and go, I'm going to do a trilogy, but then you don't think at all that this could hit a bestseller list, this could be wildly popular, and people could want more, and you back yourself into corners on characters or plot lines and stuff like that, and then you're trying to expand it, and then you just piss off your audience because you're trying to fix, because you broke it going, I'm only going to do 3 of these.
Yeah.
Either that or just only do 3 of those. That's the worst.
See, and with me, I'm like, I write very, I approach every story, whether it's a short story or whether it's a novella or my novel, I approach them very episodically. In other words, I like it to be self-contained, but at the end, there's always a little something that has an opportunity to come back if the muse strikes me later on and we want to dive into that even further. I have not had the opportunity or push yet to do a structured trilogy or continuation. It's more like I leave the end of the story and let's see what happens next.
But you're still leaving the end of the story, and you're not like, I'm going to close this door, or I'm going to have this character that has no background, and then if I'm forced to write them again, I'm just making up crap as I go along, and then you're like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your writing style a little bit. Do you plot? Do you pants? Do you palance? Do you outline? I've added a bunch of different things tonight.
I pretty much just pour a drink and see what happens.
Welcome to my entire world. No,
yeah, most writers would consider me much more a pantser.
Okay.
I like to see where it's gonna go, but I do have a couple things that I took the time to sit down and basically outline what I needed to happen. The problem I've seen with that, with my personal, like how my brain works creatively, is that as soon as I've written an extensive outline, my brain thinks that it's done. So it's actually very difficult for me to dive back in and pull out interesting elements that weren't there within the outline, because my brain's given it a conclusion already. The book is closed. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting challenge to try and get those projects done. I've got one that's been sitting in the can, I think now for 3 years, because my brain thinks it's done, but I know there's more to it on the inside of it to flesh out. The most success I had with that was with a short story that I outlined out about 3 years ago. And then, I guess in April, I did an event with my publisher where we did a fundraising event for the Alzheimer's Society, The Longest Day, where we all committed to sit down in a Zoom meeting starting at 5:30 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. and just write.
How'd that go?
Oh,
wow.
It was a nightmare. But from the positive side, I mean, overall that day I wrote about 18,000 words and some change.
Wow.
Within that, I wrote a 13,000 word short story based on an outline I had thrown together 3 years ago. So it was a successful exercise from that aspect, because I was actually able to finally flesh it out. But it took a marathon event of that nature to get my brain enough momentum to just push through it.
Wow, I don't even know how I do by hour 4 of that situation.
Oh, I was pretty giddy.
Were you allowed to drink?
I could do whatever I want. I mean, I think I was drinking by at least 5 p.m. I went through at least a bottle of wine by that point.
Oh, wow.
By the end of the day. But I mean, I kept it clean for the morning and the afternoon. It was all coffee and water. Because
wow,
you gotta.
a brave soul there. But that's awesome, because it was for a worthy cause. So that's great. That was great.
And our publisher pulled together. That was with Not a Pipe Publishing. They're the ones that are doing my vampire book that I told you about. I think altogether we had at least 8 authors doing that day, and I think we got around 80,000 words, 85,000 words total. So yeah, it's a great exercise if you ever feel like torturing yourself like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna. If somebody comes to me with a worthy cause, maybe, but I'm gonna hard pass on setting that bad boy up myself.
At 5:30 a.m. is rough.
Yeah, that was rough. I don't know how I did that part.
Wow.
That's my bedtime.
I was gonna say, you stay up all night, Jen. You're not one to talk vampire. I'm telling you, there's so many indicators of this true vampire ship. You have no idea. And she looks all innocent like.
None of the perks.
It's the blood bags in the fridge that really key you in.
Yeah. Freezer's fun, you know.
So you have your first book. So you've written novellas, which are shorter stories and short stories. What was it like actually doing the first book?
It was long. That actually was interesting because the book itself started as two short stories that I did for a collaborative anthology called Tales from the Braided Pony. And the two stories I wrote for that, they just kind of stuck with me. It was the same thing that I had with the Johnny Scotch thing, where it just kind of itched at the back of my brain for a while. And I felt that not only the characters, but the momentum was there to put more meat into it and see where it went. So I wrote the two short stories about 4 years ago, and then 2 years later I came back to it to do the expansion and dive in for an actual novel. I think I thought at the time I was just gonna add some other short stories to create my own anthology, and I just tied them together and really felt that it had enough meat in it to send off to a publisher, and luckily I was right.
That's very cool. That's very awesome. Does that one have a sequel, or did you do it as a standalone?
I try to do everything as the pessimist in me does everything as a standalone. Because I don't like to think that anything I'm going to do is going to be like the skyrocket event of the literary world. I'm smarter than that, but yeah. I do like to leave the door open in case the opportunity arrives. So the end of that book definitely leaves a little bit of opening for possibility. If the audience wants it, then I am gonna be open to at least explore that world again, because it's a really fun world, if I have to be honest. I mean, the Old West with frickin' vampires, come on. It's kind of a no-brainer if you like over-the-top goofiness.
Well, no, it's true, and that's a whole genre. Like, I'm actually, me and Jen are both writing stories for a paranormal romance set in the Old West, right? And it's different creatures and stuff like that, but that is a whole like genre of itself, becoming very, very popular is the Old West.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant. What do you feel your biggest difficulty is in writing, other than apparently the pessimism, which keeps you to this book is going to be by itself?
Yeah. My biggest challenge is in the details.
Okay.
Which is why I've really, truly, absolutely learned to love and appreciate anyone who is willing to edit my shit. Because I can't tell you how many times I've walked in on my wife reading a second or third draft of my thing, and she's literally laughing, going, "Do you realize how many times you just said 2, 2, and 2, and they're all wrong?" So I'm like, okay, fine. I know my limitations, and I appreciate those that can help point it out. And I've gotten better, as we all strive to do. Again, it's a lifelong journey in the creative process. If it means that I have to buckle down and finally learn my 8th grade grammar like I never did, then I'm gonna do my best to put something in front of you that's readable. At least to an extent, so that we have something to work with if we want to build on it.
No, that makes perfect. Again, like you've heard my editing philosophy, where I'm like, here you go. Like, but what I do want back is feedback to go, you do this, be attention. Because every time they say that, like for a long time, everybody in my story realized things. People realized that, like in one of my stories that happened so much that the editor was like, everybody realizes things. So now if I go to type that word, there's this thing in my brain that is like, do not use realized. Or I'll scroll up and go, how many times did I use realized in this manuscript? Okay, only 4. I can use it again.
That's right. Oh yeah, no, my find and replace option is is worn out by the end of a book. Even with a novella.
What are your words? Like, what do you watch out for?
Oh, I found that I was really awful at using the word "so" in my Johnny Scotch books when they're talking. So, what I know is, I'm like, after about the 100th time in 2 pages, you gotta find another way to converse. So that's one of them. I'm, like any of us, I fight the passive voice. I'm always trying to get a little bit better at it and trying to hone it and make it tighter and faster and punchier. So I'm better at that than I was 5-6 years ago, but it's always something I'm going to strive to be better at.
Do you keep any sort of like world book or anything for the Johnny Scotch, since that's the one you've carried forward the most? Do you have a world book?
I actually created a world book at the very beginning, which was just a spreadsheet with all my main characters' names on it, and then characteristics of them. Who are they? How do they talk? What do they drive? How do they dress? Just so I could keep a consistency in the Bible of what I was trying to create. But the world itself is pretty compact. I mean, it's basically a world generated from a fictionalized Portland, Seattle, LA kind of conglomerate of a town. So I use the world around me to kind of create the environment, and then go from there. I haven't run into anything with Johnny where I've screwed myself over by messing up the locations or anything yet. I'm vague enough that I don't get in trouble.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So let's talk a little bit about what you you obviously you weren't like, I went to school to write and stuff like that. Do you use certain software products? Or are you like, I'm Google Docs or Word, I'm good to go?
I'm on Word. Yeah. I started on Pages because that's what was on my computer to start with. I finally yeah, I know. Well, actually there were a few things on Pages I like, because I'm a Mac guy. So the catch is, with Pages I can turn into EPUB. So when I'm doing self-publishing stuff, it's easier to do the conversions. Word I couldn't do, and I have to like transfer and move it over. So pain in the ass. But primarily I just stick to Word because anyone who's doing my editing, I know they're probably on Word and can do track changes for me, and I can see what they're wanting, and it just makes my life easy. I know a lot of people really love their tools like Scrivener and other things, and I'm like, power to you if you can do it. I just like things simple.
Yeah, Scrivener is really good if you're a plotter. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll tell you, a lot of the writing softwares are built around being an actual plotter, because you want to dedicate and put all that stuff into the program. So it kind of reminds me, I'm a pantser too. I write a lot like you do. So I looked at Scrivener and I was like, I do not have the time nor the inclination for this program. Like, to teach the things. But if you're a plotter, people who are true plotters and all that stuff, they love that. Like the people that'll write a 30,000 word synopsis of their 60,000 word novel, which I don't get that. I still don't get it. I've met people that do it. It's not a thing for me. Yeah. How fast of a writer are you?
It depends on the idea. Like I said with the short story from that Longest Day thing, I was able to get 13,000 words in that day. So that was easy. On a regular day, if I am like actually on a tear, I'll do anywhere between 2,000 and 4,000 words in a sitting. It's pretty much I kind of gauge my writing time or I used to. I can't right now. I used to gauge my writing time as far as how long will this bar let me sit here nursing this beer and writing, or this whiskey or wine, whatever I'm drinking at the time. So if it takes 2 or 3 glasses to get everything out I need to get out, then that's what it would take.
Do you how have you found writing during the time of the Rona?
A bit difficult.
It's interesting. I think as writers, we all go, we want to just be able to write and be in clothes and full time. We're going to go to a writer's retreat. And I think that has been an epic fail for most writers that I've talked to. Like, that did not work out exactly the way Jen too.
This is the most writing I've done in years.
Well,
bravo. Good for you. And I hate you right now. God damn it.
I'm
She's
home. It's
she's
summer.
a powerhouse, though. She's one of those writers, like several writer friends that sit down. They're like, "Oh my God, yeah, I just read for an hour and I read 4,000 words." And I'm like, "Shut up!"
Yeah.
Like nobody cares. Like nobody cares.
No, I think what's been difficult for me is like I used to like schedule time to go out of my house to specifically go write. You know, because it was difficult for me to be creative in the place where I'm at on a daily basis. And so that's, I think, what's been my biggest hurdle is forcing myself to find that creative spark within the environment that I'm given.
That makes sense. I know. Go ahead, Jen.
Do you listen to music while you write?
I have to now. I mean, that's just kind of the one distraction I have. I think that's what I liked about going to like bars and coffee shops was there was the incessant din of the natural world rolling around me. You know, I could pull energy from everything happening around me and drop it on my page. And right now, I have my kitchen table and my dog. And my lovely wife, but she's so busy I can't really pull that much energy from her because she has to do her shit.
No, totally. Oh my gosh, I had a thought. Let's talk about your covers for a little bit. So you did a lot of self-publishing. Where did your covers come from?
On the Johnny Scotch stuff, so the first two covers actually came from Dan, who was doing the comic book series. So which are great. I love the first one. The second one is pretty solid, and then this new one, which I'll be revealing soon. I think that's the one I sent over you to look at.
Yeah.
That one just got finalized and finished up this last week. Then that's done by a gentleman his name is Scott Cole, and I think he did a really beautiful job of just capturing the mood of the new book. It's a little bit darker. It's a little bit more of almost a straight up hard-boiled detective novel than my first two. My first two are really just action adventure, kind of flavor. And then this one I really try. I didn't try it. Just it's how it worked. It came out as much more that traditional, Raymond Chandler meets Lee Child kind of hard-boiled detective flavor.
The dame walked in.
Yeah, exactly. And which has always been kind of the flavor I've tried to portray in the voice of the books anyways. And I think he grabbed it really nice with a very moody cover and I think it's pretty fun. So that's where those come from. I always go outside. I am not the artist. That's why someone else did my comic book. I'm not the artist. I'm a writer. I'm happy to guide. I'm happy to give you the ideas, but I do not put pen to paper in that way.
How do you feel about your social media presence?
It's okay. My social media on Trumpet is much better because I've been doing it longer. As far as like having more people on there, but I'm also of the generation before computers and before social media, so I'm adapting instead of just being born into it. I wish I didn't have to use it as much as I do, but that's kind of how things are done these days. So we put out what we can.
Totally. Okay, cool. Well, we're coming near the end here. Let's do some shameless self-promotion. How do people find you?
They have a few options to find me. As my author presence is most present at readjohndover.com, which is where I try to keep my actual author stuff out there and present as much as possible. Music-wise, I have johndmusic.com, which also has another book in there. This last year, I published my first trumpet method through my music world. So it combined my author. And like the first half of the book is all the written description of how I, do what I do, and then the back half is all music. I also have a a comic book site at JohnnyScotchJustice.com. If listeners are more geared towards social media, they can find me at John Dover Author at Facebook. They can also find me at Johnny Scotch Justice on Facebook and on Instagram.
Oh, you're doing the Insta. Wow, look at you stepping up in the social media world.
That's right. Insta hasn't seen me very often. Insta used to see me more when I was writing in bars, because basically I would take a picture of whatever I was drinking in my computer screen and say, guess I'm writing again. But so I am on Instagram, though. I have a Twitter, but I don't use it very often. I should, I guess. But again, I'm an adapter, not born into it.
You should Insta your table. We'll get your kitchen table.
That's right.
And here's the same kitchen table. You can't tell that this is a different photo.
A new angle.
Right. But notice, there's a glass of wine today. Oh, it's whiskey. Hey now.
And the dog is not to the left. It is to the right this time.
That's right. You can see her patiently waiting for her treat.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, you have been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been a blast.
Wonderful. Do you have any parting words to aspiring authors?
Write every day. You know, it doesn't matter if it's one word or 1,000. Just put something on the page and then walk away.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, our amazing guest has been John Dover, and I've been Erica Lance.
J.M. Paquette.
Every single time, J.M.
It's Skype.
Every time. Pause, delay, technical difficulties, J.M. Paquette. Whatever. No, don't whatever. I'm done. Okay. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Oh, hi there. I didn't see you come in. Are you wondering what I'm reading? I'm reading the Author's Accountability Guide, produced by the Four Horsemen. Do you need a day-to-day guide on how to write your book, novel, prose, whatever you're doing with your life? Because writing is hard. This has day-by-day instructions, week-by-week tracking, and motivational things from your muses. So, grab a drink, grab a book, and get some fucking writing done.
Okay. Yes, we're recording. Yes. Welcome to Drinking with Authors Gin. Very brief episode.
Drinking with authors, yeah.
See, we need it. You can just redo our entire theme song entrance. There we go. So this is Literary Briefs. I forgot where I was for a moment there. I'm your host, Erica Lance. With me is
J.M. Paquette.
And our amazing guest today is John Dover. Welcome.
John Dover.
So let's talk a little bit about what we're drinking before I start my list of 2 rapid fire questions before Jen has to take over. So I have, it's a true story. I have Perrier strawberry with gin, but the gin is actually Italian gin. That is like a super fancy gin that comes in a light, medium, and dark gin. This happens to be the light gin. Mm-hmm. It's very fancy and was brought over to me from Spain, and I put French water in it. So I'm sure there's a lot of Europeans that'll hate me right now. So it's cool.
Oh, the Europeans hate us all right now. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah, they definitely know what was playing in their yard. Okay, Jen.
I'm drinking a lime bubbly.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
It's fine.
Some
of us can't drink. Not that I'd want to drink gin because it smells like cleaner, but I know I'm that person.
How dare you?
I know.
Gin is one of the lightest drinks, I think, from being a whiskey drinker as well. But okay, you know what? You can't even talk. You can't even drink this stuff. You have an allergic reaction to tiramisu. Don't get me started with you.
I do. It's so unfair.
It is. Yeah, she forgot all the desserts that have liquor in them when this allergy came into play. She learned really quickly.
Oh, that sucks.
Port
Yeah.
wine cheese. Are you kidding me? Port wine cheese.
Oh,
No.
that's the worst.
Anyway, John, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a lovely blended scotch from Oak Cross.
Wonderful.
Mm.
Wonderful. I like how she didn't make a face when you said that on this. I know this is audio and everybody's hearing us.
I am married to someone who drinks gin. I know how it smells. It's but scotch for some reason that I don't.
You don't have that sound like you're going to throw up when you smell
No.
scotch?
Oh, gin just anyway, I'm glad you guys like it.
Oh my God. Hashtag judgment. Whatever. Anyway. It's a good thing we've been friends 20 years and I'll put up with your crap on this podcast. But let's do some rapid fire questions. So, first rapid fire question. What is your favorite book of all time?
Well, shit, this is rapid fire? Oh.
Yeah, I did mention rapid fire in between drinking.
Of all time. You know, I'd have to say, see, I'm slowing this down because I'm trying to think as I do this.
In a very soothing,
very calm, soothing way.
Be the guy on a game show who feels the need to explain his every answer.
Literary Answers by John Dover. You know, I'm gonna go very, very light, and I'm gonna say three things actually. So, I actually love the book The Princess Bride.
Oh.
I actually adore the book Needful Things. And then because it kind of ushered me through a very difficult time in my life, I always have a special spot in my heart for the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh my goodness, you're like Jen is your number one fan now. So one of the
Stephen King and Tolkien, come on.
Okay,
I'm quiet.
No, you're not. So Jen literally teaches a class on Tolkien. She teaches go ahead, explain yourself.
No, I love Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and I wrote my thesis on that, and then my dissertation was on Stephen King's Stand. So yeah, Needful Things is up there. Good times.
It's a fun book. It's a fun book.
Well, it's interesting. We're talking about editing on the last podcast. Stephen King very much has that whole like edit me view too. Like, here you go, just do it, fix it.
Just get her done.
Kill your darlings, he says.
Yep, kill them.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what is your least favorite book?
Oh, it's one I never read all the way through, and I just kind of got about a chapter in and threw it away. And I always get in trouble when I say this, because there's a lot of literary, like actual readers and writers that really appreciate this book. But it's called Grendel.
It has moments.
And
what does that mean, Jen? It has moments.
Yeah.
It's a retelling of Beowulf from Grendel's point of view, and it's clever in some ways. It makes a lot of assumptions. If I love Beowulf in my soul, like that's where my heart lives.
Which is why I read the book,
mm-hmm.
because Beowulf probably is the only book that I read in Old English that just I couldn't put down. I thought it was an amazing, beautifully told story, and then I found Grendel, and I went, "What the fuck is this shit?"
Well,
it's my fault. I know it's me.
it's supposed to be like a philosophical experiment. Is also
right.
what's happening. And if you think about the story from Grendel's point of view, Beowulf is crazy. Yeah. He's the aggressor, and poor Grendel. Yeah. But I could see. Yeah, it's like reading the Russian Lord of the Rings that's told from the orcs' point of view. By the time you're done with that book, you're like, oh my God, all of our heroes are just awful.
Yeah.
These poor orcs.
No, and I understood where it was coming from when he wrote it, and I honestly, it was probably at the wrong time because I was reading nothing but pure fluff, honestly. And then I picked up Grendel, and it is huge words, long sentences, and it's very introspective, and I was not in the mood for it, and because of that I have always subjugated it to my least favorite book category.
Wow. Okay, so do you you kind of answered this already, but do you always finish a book, or for the most part, like Jen will dive hard, go through a book, and she will keep going with it no matter what.
Just
And
fight for
I
it.
am like, fuck that shit, and I will launch it, not in my Kindle because throwing my Kindle has not worked out for me, but I will launch that crap across the room, theoretically. Because I'm like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
I won't invest the time if it's that bad to me. Like, I just
Yeah.
won't.
It takes, yeah, I am hard. If it doesn't have me, it doesn't have me. And I am not invested enough to just push through it. But if it has me, even if it has like chunks in the middle or whatever that don't grab me, I will push through it. So for the most part, it has to grab me from pretty much the get-go and give me something that speaks to me.
What are your pet peeves because you're an author, so you actually have the street cred when you're reading a book to go, what the crap sticks? Is there anything in particular that you just will automatically throw you out of the story?
I get bothered when I feel someone's trying to be creative from a labored aspect. In other words, creative for creative aspect, or I don't feel that they actually meant what they said. So throwing something in that sounds clever versus is naturally clever.
Trying too hard.
Trying too hard drives me a bit nuts. And I'm the same way with music too. If I hear someone who is just throwing lick after lick after lick after lick that has no actual creative content to it, I'm turning you off. I'm done. You're not engaging me.
Do you read more than one book at a time?
Not generally. If I am actually investing in a book, I'm going to invest in it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to dive into it and front to back.
Do you write reviews?
I write reviews, but not on books generally. I'm actually I write whiskey reviews.
But not Scotch.
If they give me a bottle of Scotch, I'll take it because that's fair. I mean, it's I write for a website called thewhiskeywash.com, so I get to do whiskey rum once in a while. Actually, I've done a couple of bourbon books, but generally I don't do literary book reviews.
How come?
Uh,
You want them. We're all authors. We want them. And it's fascinating to me because your answer is very similar to a lot of other authors. So we want people to review our books, but when it comes to reviewing, we're kind of like,
I will do blurbs, and I will do if it's someone that I know that needs and wants a review to kind of help push them forward, then I will dive in and do it. I'm a very selfish reader, and I don't want to be relegated to feel like I have to like something.
it makes sense. It's just, do you read electronically or do you like paper books?
Paper.
Oh.
All day long. I don't like I've done the Kindle thing, and I will continue to do it, and if I'm going to invest the time, I want the tactical, the tactile feel of pages in my hand. I want the smell of the paper. That's where I'm at. I'm a very sensory driven reader.
See, I was, at first I felt that way, and then I was like, I like to fall asleep in bed, and it's so much easier to have one hand that I have to hit the next page with than to have to turn pages or spines or Jen's about to give us why paperbacks.
You don't like that feeling of like smacking yourself in the face with a book as you fall asleep at night. You're like, oh, I guess it's time for me to go to bed now. Just a couple more pages.
Yeah, no, I've done that.
Do you mark up your books, or are you like a purist? Will you dog ear a page or underline?
I'll dog ear.
Yeah.
I'll dog ear, but I don't underline. I like to appreciate what's on the page.
So have you had, do you have a lot of author friends?
What do you mean by a lot?
More than 5?
Yes, I have more than 5.
Okay, good. Wow, I feel a lot of judgment.
I feel like there's 6.
But
Yeah, it's like 6, maybe 7.
do,
I mean,
do they,
let's be honest. I don't have many people that would call me a friend, anyways. I mean, I'm kind of an asshole, so it's like.
I'm a bitch, but a lot of people think they're my friends anyway, so it's
See,
cool.
there it is.
Just kidding. Yeah, I love it. So, but have you had author friends ask you to read their stuff?
Yes, and I will read their stuff, and I will generally they're asking me to read it when it's done.
Okay.
Because they know they know me well enough that I'm not an editor. So I'm not going to be able to go through with a fine-tooth comb and tell them, "Oh, the third paragraph on the first page has a typo." I just can't do that. My brain's not wired that way. I don't want my brain wired that way. I love and appreciate everyone in the world that is wired that way because they're who helps make everything legible. I am not going to make it legible. I am happy to add blurbs and give you input because we all need that. I mean, plain and simple. As authors, we all need that input, either to help broaden the reach that we are trying to get so that we have a new person pushing stuff out for us, or just to help bring new eyes to what we've put out there. So it's necessary, and I'm always happy to help my friends and to help people that I know. But I'm not always, I don't have a, massive, huge audience that someone can tap into. I want one someday, and I'm always striving to build on that audience. But I'm also not the guy that they're going to come to if they want 20,000 readers tomorrow.
No, that makes sense. Well, for right now, obviously that'll change. You ever gotten one that you started reading and you're like, no?
Yes.
Are you honest with your friends or not?
Yes, but the in all honesty, my friends are all really good authors, so I haven't had that trouble. It's the time that I ran into trouble was with someone that was like, "Hey," they ran into me at a reading. They're like, "Check out my books, and I'll check out your books," which is generally a fine exchange. It just didn't work out that way in this instance, and I had to cut ties with that person because it was just an uncomfortable experience trying to read their book.
Yikes. That's never good.
Yeah.
So, a reader, what are you reading now?
What am I reading? I actually just picked up a newer Stephen King thing. Where is that? But I haven't dove into it yet. I'm looking forward to diving into it. Most of my reading has been vicarious. My wife reads a lot more than I do, actually. So I get a lot of book stuff from her. And I used to read more when I was on the road a lot because I would throw audiobooks in. So I got a ton of books that way. Where is that book I'm on? It is in the other room. I can't help you there.
Is that your wife, or are you looking in the other room?
Nope, I'm looking. Actually, it's not in the other room. One sec.
I love technical stuff.
All right. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon is what I'm diving into.
So good.
Yeah.
The Refrigerator People.
Yeah. So that's where I'm diving into right now. Is a newer Stephen King.
There is a line in that book that haunts me. I love Stephen King, so
yeah.
But that's a good one.
He tries the happy ending, though.
I mean, yeah, in this one.
Yeah, he does.
He's ruin it.
He's a tie it up with a bow kind of guy.
No, he kills his main characters and then leaves or if they live, it's sort of like, yeah, you're alive today. Tomorrow you're probably gonna die. Like evil never gets vanquished in Stephen King. It just you win the battle, not the war.
Yeah, no, I'll go with you on that. I'll give you that. It's kind of like yeah.
What? What are you gonna say?
Nope. What you got?
Are you into sports at all? Since Tom Gordon is, it's a sporty little book.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't watch sports.
Okay.
I dig into sports documentaries once in a while, and that's about it. And I appreciate the skill level and the discipline behind sports, but I am not a sports guy.
So you have the vampire book coming out, and you have the next Johnny Scotch. What is next after that?
I have two things. I have the short story that I recently wrote that I'm working on editing, which is think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets dragons kind of thing. And then I've got a supernatural romance adventure, kind of Romancing the Stone meets Purple Rose of Cairo kind of feel.
Wow. Are you going to use pen names at all? Or are you planning on putting this all under your name?
I don't see a need for pen names personally, because I'm a little bit of a narcissist in the sense that if someone reads my stuff, I want to know that they read my stuff. And I don't write anything that is necessarily offensive enough to worry about hiding who I am.
It's not offensive. I'm talking more from the fan base, because fans are pretty much genre fans. They're not all in the same exact thing, but they're genre fans.
And that's fair.
If they're reading your horror stuff, and then you're like, and here's this romance book, and then they go, what the? And I know this because it's funny. Oh my goodness, his name just escaped me right now, and it's gonna come. Jeff Strand. Whew, I have a drunk gnome in my head. Barely slipped that Post-it out in the last couple of seconds. But Jeff Strand was talking about this because he writes horror, and he writes young adult horror, so kind of two different genres. But he wrote a romance novel, a humorous romance novel, because he writes humorous horror. And he's a pretty well-known author. He's gotten the Bram Stoker Award like 5 billion times.
Yeah.
And he wrote a romance book called Kumquat. And we were talking the other day, because he's a friend of mine, but he was on the podcast, and he's like, yeah, I should have put that under a pen name. Because his fans were like, what in the actual crap? And it wasn't like it was a bad book, but they were like, what the fuck is this? What is this?
And I don't think I've had enough of a departure from my personal voice to really warrant it. Because Johnny Scotch, everything that I do kind of has a little bit of a pulpy twist. So whether it's Johnny Scotch and the hard-boiled flavor, or it's The Beast with Two Backs, which was a short story I wrote, which is probably the darkest freaking story I ever wrote too. That one, it still has a lot of me in it. So whether it's a pen name or whatever, you're still going to know I'm writing it. My stuff doesn't vary that much, except for just honestly how much gore I'll put in it or how far I'll push certain things. All of my stuff is for adult readers. So I'm not worried about kids coming along. I used to kind of worry about the comic books, because comic books are so used to be so associated with young readers. And I did have a couple instances where I was performing for young groups, and kids would come up to me and say, where can I get your comic book? And I'm looking at the back page going, well, that woman's naked, so I can't sell this to you, Timmy. But that was more of I understood who my audience was, and that I can't push this towards this audience. I'm not opposed to a pen name if it ever came down to that, but I haven't written anything I think is far enough a departure from what my readers would be okay with.
So where do you get your inspiration? You kind of told us the inspiration for Johnny Scotch. Where do you get the inspiration for your stories, do you feel like?
I don't know. I want to give you a good, cool, clever answer for that, and I can't.
Well, let's take a sip of your scotch. Maybe you can come up with like a cool, clever answer for that. I'm going to take a sip too.
There it is. That's the picture. Take a screenshot.
All right. So let's go backwards. The vampire western was just inspired, I think, by the fact that I really have I always have loved kind of the spaghetti western genre in movies. So everything kind of pulls from kind of a cinematic aspect with me. And I had just watched Once Upon a Time in the West. Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a classic, and it's gorgeous. Oh my God. If your readers have not watched this movie, it is beautiful. It is the penultimate, in my opinion, it's the penultimate spaghetti western. Mm-hmm. The soundtrack is ridiculously gorgeous. The cinematography is amazing. And just the weirdness of the script is great. So I had just watched that, and I have always loved Bram Stoker's Dracula. And I'm like, these are all happening at the same time. Why can't they happen in the same place? So let's put a chase story in the Old West, and let's put some vampires in there just to kick it up a notch. And that's where that one came from. The Beast with Two Backs that I mentioned earlier, which is published, it was published last fall in a anthology by Stitch Smile Publishing called Tenebrous. That one came from me being willing to delve into a very dark time in my life, which was I believe that dark time came from when I was going through a divorce, and it just resurfaced when I was writing this book. And a lot of aspects of that book kind of delve on kind of my feelings that I was dealing with, which is weird because it was much past that time in my life when I actually wrote about it. But I mean, we can't choose when the inspiration comes, just how we put it out there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
My short story in Carnival of Horrors came from my love, which is kind of a conflicted love of the short story and the movie Children of the Corn.
Oh.
Mixed with the idea of what I view as of current cultism, and how I decided to kind of manifest that in a weird carnival setting. Let's just put it that way.
Interesting.
So it always comes from kind of a mixed blender of what my brain is going through, and it usually starts with one character, one moment in that character's life, and I like to see where it goes. So
that
again,
makes sense.
Back to the pantsing idea. I just let the inspiration drive. If it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't. And I've got a folder on my computer full of one paragraph ideas that have never manifested and didn't happen, as every good writer should have.
Yeah, the story graveyard, the epic story graveyard. No, totally. Well, you seem to like all the movies you've mentioned. Huge fan of. Mm-hmm. You feel like you get a lot of inspiration from movies?
I get a lot of. Yes, absolutely. I can't say I don't. I grew up in the 80s, which in my opinion is kind of a golden era of cinematic storytelling in the adventure realm. You know, you had Steven Spielberg at his prime. You had George Lucas at the, eclipse of his prime, we'll say. Well, it's controversial, I know, it's okay. But you had this very, very prolific era of storytelling in the cinematic world, and I was a kid who did not feel very socially forward, so my summers were spent building stupid little models while Raiders of the Lost Ark and Lady Hawk played in the background. Yes. So I I drive a lot of my pacing from how movies are paced. When I'm writing, I really try to drive this visual image. How does this action scene actually play out? How do these characters move? How does everything transition? So my writing does tend to have a very cinematic drive to it when I am putting it on paper.
Do you think when it gets to the point somebody wants to opt one of your books or your, the Johnny Scotch series, and they go, we're going to make this a live action thing, how would you feel about somebody else writing that?
As long as I'm allowed to be in the room, then we're golden.
So who would play him? Who would play Johnny Scotch?
It depends on what route we take. Let's put it that way. So if we go like straight up current action movie, like if you want to go full star power, I think we were there was a time when me and my illustrator really pushed ideas of things like Jason Statham, because he's got such a good charisma and such a strong physical presence on the camera. I personally would endorse someone that I think should be higher on the cinematic realm in the martial arts world, which would be Scott Adkins, who does a lot of either like minor character stuff in big movies or tons of B movie stuff, straight to video type stuff. But he's a beautiful actor and a beautiful physical actor. I've also considered, from the I think he's a beautiful, beautiful person and would actually really do a nice, dramatic take on the character. I would say Ryan Gosling would be a beautiful Johnny Scotch. And I'm very confident in saying he's a beautiful man, so I'm okay with that. But also, if you want to put a little more humorous tinge, which I am always up for, there's oh crap, I can't think of him. Who?
Oh, your drunk gnome's not paying as much attention as my
drunk
gnome.
My drunk gnome is drunk. Your drunk gnome is sipping water and coffee in between drinks. Mine is sipping more scotch in between drinks. I'll have to come back to him.
Judging my drunk gnome an awful lot over there, John.
Somebody has to keep things going.
That's not judgment. That's appreciation for your drunk gnome having limits.
Boundary.
Can't think of him. Maybe you guys can help me out. He's the main actor in the movie Moon. He's also in Galaxy Quest.
Who is he in Galaxy Quest?
He's Guy.
Kramer 3.
Yes. Sam Rockwell.
There it is.
Yeah. He was in Mr. Right, one of my favorite romantic movies of all time.
I think Sam Rockwell would actually make a really fun Johnny Scotch, in all absolute honesty.
I could see that. He is a fun guy. I love his characters. He's one of those underrated characters that.
Is there air?
You don't know. I love that movie.
You don't know.
Galaxy Quest is probably one of mine. It's one of my top 5, hands down, movies of all time.
As it should be. It's glorious. It's the best. It's next to Wrath of Khan. It is the best Star Trek movie ever.
Yes! That is exactly my sequence. Wrath of Khan, Galaxy Quest. Yep. Oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, very cool. Oh my gosh, we need to wrap up. We could talk for hours. We should talk again in the future. I enjoy this. We're going to have you back on this podcast soon. You have to let us know when your vampire book gets released and you can come back on.
Well, I can tell you that is actually slotted for a spring of 2021 release.
Then we could have you back on. It'll be delightful.
We got time.
We got so much time. Oh my goodness. Okay. So real quick, shameless self-promotion plug. How do people find you?
They find me at readjohndover.com or johnnyscotchjustice.com or johndmusic.com. They can also just jump on Facebook and find Johnny Scotch /author John Dover /John Dover Trumpet.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You actually deliver your shameless self-promotion much better drunk than you do less drunk.
You know, I'm a much better person when I'm drunk. No, shit. Oh, no.
Yeah, I was told I'm not allowed to say that anymore either. It's fine.
Honestly, these days, I'm usually drunk by 3 p.m. anyways, so it's okay.
Oh, I feel you completely on that. You have been amazing to have on. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, thank you. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate you bringing me in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And this has been Drinking with Authors for Literary Briefs. I'm Erica Lance.
Jane Paquette.
Anyway, we'll see you next time.